The Salon security cameras would later show exactly what happened that Saturday afternoon at 2:13 p.m. inside Bella's bridal hair studio in McLean, Virginia. A beautiful black woman in her late 20s sat in a styling chair, her natural hair being expertly shaped and prepared for what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She wore a comfortable dress and radiated the kind of excited energy that brides have the day before their wedding. Her stylist, Maria Chen, was carefully working through each section, laughing with her client about wedding day butterflies. Officer Daniel Reeves walked through that salon door with his hand already resting on his belt, his jaw set, his expression hostile. He was 43 years old, with 17 years on the Fairfax County Police Force and a personnel file that told a troubling story of complaints and questionable stops. What this officer didn't know was that he had just made the worst mistake of his entire career. One decision that would cost him his job, his pension, and his reputation. One interaction that would trigger a federal investigation, expose a pattern of racial profiling spanning more than a decade, and result in one of the largest civil rights settlements in Virginia history. The bride he was about to humiliate was Alicia Hammond, daughter of FBI Director Marcus Hammond. Everything was being recorded, and Officer Reeves was about to learn exactly what happens when you target the wrong person. Before we continue, drop your location in the comments, and if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this need to be shared, and your support helps us expose truth that mainstream media often ignores. Alicia Hammond was not just any bride preparing for her wedding. She was a civil rights attorney with the ACLU, specializing in police misconduct cases. She held a law degree from Georgetown and had spent 6 years fighting the exact discrimination she was about to experience firsthand. Her trial record was impressive. 14 major civil rights cases, 12 victories, and a reputation for being thorough, methodical, and absolutely relentless when seeking justice. Her father, Marcus Hammond, had served as FBI director for 4 years and had a distinguished career spanning 3 decades in federal law enforcement. He had overseen investigations into corruption at every level and was known for his zero-tolerance policy toward abuse of authority. The Hammond family had deep connections throughout law enforcement, the Justice Department, and federal agencies nationwide. But on this particular Saturday, Alicia wasn't thinking about her legal career or her father's position. She was thinking about her wedding to David Chen, a trauma surgeon she had met 5 years earlier. The ceremony was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at the National Cathedral. 200 guests were invited. Everything was planned down to the smallest detail. The salon itself was a high-end establishment in one of Virginia's most affluent areas. McLean was home to politicians, diplomats, federal officials, and wealthy professionals. Bella's bridal hair studio catered to that exact clientele with appointments booked months in advance. Alicia had paid $1,200 for this appointment, which included a trial run 2 weeks earlier and the full styling session today. She had arrived at exactly 2:00 p.m., right on schedule. Maria had greeted her with a hug, and they had immediately started work on the complex updo that would take nearly 3 hours to complete. They were 45 minutes into the process when Officer Reeves walked through the door. Officer Reeves had received a call at 2:07 p.m. The details were vague. Someone had reported suspicious activity at the salon. No specifics about what made the activity suspicious, no description of any actual crime or threat, just a complaint that triggered Reeves to respond immediately. Later investigation would reveal exactly who made that call and why. Patricia Waldron, a wealthy white woman in the waiting area, had seen Alicia walk in. Waldron, with her own history of complaints about those people in her neighborhood, had called 911 to report what she claimed was a dangerous individual in the salon. Her description was purely racial, with no actual criminal behavior mentioned. The 911 operator had noted her concerns but hadn't classified it as an emergency. Reeves, however, had taken it upon himself to respond with urgency. He walked into Bella's like he was entering a crime scene. His hand was on his belt. His voice was loud and authoritative. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't ask questions. He immediately demanded that Alicia leave. Maria stopped working and looked at him in confusion. "Excuse me? This is my client. She has an appointment." Reeves ignored her completely. "Ma'am, stand up. You need to exit this building immediately." Alicia remained calm, though her heart was racing. Years of training kicked in. She knew her rights. "Officer, I'm a paying customer. I have an appointment. What is this about?" "Someone called in a complaint. You're leaving, or I'm escorting you out." "What was the complaint?" Alicia asked, her voice steady. Reeves's response was telling. "Suspicious activity. That's all you need to know." 3 other women in the salon were now watching. 2 clients and another stylist had stopped what they were doing. The atmosphere had shifted from relaxed to tense in seconds. Maria spoke louder. Officer, there has been no suspicious activity. This woman is getting her hair done for her wedding tomorrow. She's been my client for years. Reeves shot Maria a look that silenced her. Ma'am, I need you to step back and let me handle this. Alicia slowly stood up, making sure her movements were careful and visible. I'm standing. Now, can you please explain what I'm being accused of? You were reported for suspicious behavior. I'm here to investigate. What suspicious behavior? I walked into a salon where I had an appointment and sat down to get my hair done. Exactly what part of that is suspicious? The question hung in the air. Everyone in that salon knew the answer, even if Reeves would never admit it. The only thing suspicious about Alicia was the color of her skin in a space where someone had decided she didn't belong. Reeves stepped closer, invading her personal space. Ma'am, I'm not going to ask again. You can leave voluntarily, or I will remove you. One of the other clients, Jennifer Ross, pulled out her phone and started recording. She held it up visibly. Officer, I'm recording this, for everyone's safety. Reeves glanced at the phone but didn't back down. That's your right, ma'am, but it doesn't change what's happening here. Alicia reached slowly for her purse on the counter. I'm getting my identification. I'm moving slowly. I'm showing you what I'm doing. Keep your hands where I can see them, Reeves barked. She retrieved her wallet and pulled out her driver's license, a business card from her law firm, and her attorney credentials. She handed them to Reeves calmly. Here's my ID. I'm Alicia Hammond. I'm an attorney with the ACLU. I work on civil rights cases. I have done nothing illegal, and I have every right to be in this business as a paying customer. Reeves barely glanced at the credentials before handing them back. I don't care who you are. You're leaving. That response was the moment when Officer Reeves crossed a line he could never uncross. He had just dismissed a civil rights attorney's credentials while being recorded from multiple angles. Alicia's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. Officer, I'm informing you that I know my rights. I am not leaving this establishment unless you can provide a specific articulable reason. I have not violated any laws. The owner wants me here. You have no legal authority to remove me. Reeves's face reddened. You're refusing a lawful order from a police officer. I'm asserting my constitutional rights. If you believe I've committed a crime, tell me what crime. Otherwise, you're violating my Fourth Amendment rights. Maria jumped in, her anger rising. I own this salon. I am the property owner. I have not asked her to leave. Officer, you need to exit my business right now. Instead of backing down, Reeves reached for his radio. Dispatch, I need backup at Bella's bridal hair studio on Dolly Madison Boulevard. I have an uncooperative subject refusing lawful commands. Alicia pulled out her phone and called her father directly. Dad, I need you to listen. I'm at Bella's getting my hair done for tomorrow, and a Fairfax County officer is trying to forcibly remove me for no legal reason. Officer Reeves, badge number 147, he's called backup. I need you to contact the Fairfax County command structure right now. She put the phone on speaker. Marcus Hammond's voice was controlled but furious. Alicia, are you safe? I'm safe. But this officer has refused my identification, ignored the property owner, and called me uncooperative despite breaking no laws. Stay on the line. I'm making calls right now. Type lawsuit in the comments if you know where this is headed. 2 backup officers arrived, Officer Lisa Tran and Officer Marcus Wilson. They expected danger. Instead, they found a woman calmly holding a phone while the property owner demanded Reeves leave. Tran sensed something was very wrong. Reeves, what's the situation? Subject refusing to vacate after a complaint. What was the complaint? Tran asked, looking at the peaceful salon. Suspicious activity. Maria spoke immediately. This officer barged in and demanded my client leave. She's here for a $1,200 bridal appointment booked 3 months ago. She's done nothing wrong. I've asked him to leave my property and he's refusing. Wilson looked at Reeves. Did the property owner file a complaint? No, but then what's the legal basis? Wilson asked directly. Reeves scrambled. A citizen called in suspicious activity. What suspicious activity specifically? Reeves could not answer that without admitting racial profiling. The subject has been argumentative and uncooperative. Alicia's voice cut through. That's false. I've complied with every legal request. I provided identification. I explained my presence. I cited my rights. The only thing I've refused is leaving a business where I'm a paying customer without legal cause. Tran looked at Wilson. They both knew this was a disaster. Tran made a decision. Reeves, step outside with me, now. They stepped out. Wilson looked at Alicia and the witnesses. Ma'am, I apologize for this disruption. You're free to continue your appointment. Through the window, everyone saw Tran urgently radioing. Within 90 seconds, a supervisor's vehicle arrived. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison got out and immediately went to Tran and Reeves. Lieutenant Morrison had been on duty less than an hour when she got the call. The FBI director was on the phone with the county police chief, and one of their officers had apparently detained the director's daughter without cause. Morrison listened to Tran's account, then Reeves trying to justify his actions. Then she walked into Bella's, where she found Alicia still on the phone with her father, surrounded by witnesses, recording everything. Ms. Hammond, I'm Lieutenant Morrison. I'm the watch commander for this district. I am very sorry for what has happened here today. Alicia's expression didn't soften. Are you apologizing because your officer violated my rights, or because you just found out who my father is? The question hit its mark. Morrison took a breath. Both. What Officer Reeves did here was wrong regardless of who you are, but I'm also aware this has already reached the highest levels of command, and I need to make sure we handle it properly from this point forward. Handle it properly? Alicia's voice had an edge. Lieutenant, your officer racially profiled me, attempted to illegally remove me from a business, lied about my cooperation, called backup to intimidate me, and refused to accept my credentials or listen to the property owner. The time to handle it properly was 17 years ago when you hired someone like Officer Reeves. Morrison had no good response. I'm placing Officer Reeves on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. This incident will be fully reviewed. If you think administrative leave isn't enough, type fired in the comments. Outside, Reeves was arguing with Tran and two other supervisors. He was insisting he had done everything by the book. He was claiming Alicia had been hostile from the start. He was desperately trying to rewrite a story captured from 6 different camera angles. But while Reeves argued his case, something much bigger was happening. FBI Director Hammond had made exactly 3 phone calls. The first was to the Fairfax County Police Chief, who was now on his way to the scene. The second was to his own Office of Professional Responsibility, which investigates civil rights violations by law enforcement. The third was to his daughter's law firm, where her senior partners were already pulling together every resource they had. This was no longer just a bad stop. This was a federal case waiting to happen. Back in the salon, Alicia finally sat back down in her styling chair. Maria looked at her with tears in her eyes. Alicia, I am so sorry this happened to you, on the day before your wedding. Alicia reached out and squeezed Maria's hand. This isn't your fault, and we're finishing this hairstyle. I'm getting married tomorrow, and I'm going to look absolutely perfect when I do. The other customers had witnessed something they would never forget. Jennifer Ross walked over to Alicia. I'm sending you this video. I want you to have every angle. What he did to you was disgusting, and I'll testify to exactly what I saw. One by one, the other witnesses offered the same. 5 separate video recordings, 5 eyewitnesses, 1 very clear case of racial profiling captured in high definition. Outside, Police Chief Raymond Tucker arrived and immediately began damage control meetings that would last into the night. Inside, Alicia Hammond sat calmly in a styling chair and let her future sister-in-law finish creating the wedding hairstyle she had paid for and had every right to receive. The legal consequences were already in motion, and Officer Daniel Reeves had no idea how completely his world was about to collapse. The full weight of what Reeves had done hit him Monday morning when he was called into a meeting with Police Chief Tucker, FBI representatives, and the county attorney's office. The county's legal team had spent the weekend reviewing body camera footage, witness statements, and applicable law. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Reeves had violated multiple department policies and likely violated Alicia Hammond's civil rights under federal law. The reveal that destroyed Reeves wasn't just about Alicia's connections. It was about what investigators found when they dug into his history. 17 years on the force, 42 citizen complaints, 37 of those involved people of color, 29 specifically involved accusations of racial profiling during traffic stops or business checks. The pattern was undeniable and had been documented for over a decade. Internal Affairs had investigated Reeves 6 times. Each investigation found insufficient evidence to sustain complaints. Each time, Reeves received what amounted to a slap on the wrist. Each time, his behavior continued unchanged. The department had failed to address a clear pattern of discriminatory enforcement, and now that failure was about to become very expensive. When Reeves learned that the woman he tried to remove was not only a civil rights attorney but also the FBI director's daughter, his face went pale. When he learned that the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility was now reviewing every single one of his arrests and stops over his entire career, he needed to sit down. When he learned that the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division had opened a formal investigation into the Fairfax County Police Department's handling of racial profiling complaints, he realized his actions had triggered consequences far beyond anything he had imagined. The worst moment came when his attorney showed him the lawsuit. Alicia Hammond wasn't just suing him personally, she was suing the department for maintaining a pattern and practice of racial discrimination. She was suing individual supervisors who had reviewed his complaint history and failed to take action. She was demanding policy changes, mandatory training, independent oversight, and monetary damages. The filing was 89 pages long and cited 23 separate incidents beyond Alicia's own experience. Her law firm had found other victims of Reeves's profiling. They had found department emails discussing complaints but taking no action. They had found training records showing Reeves had failed multiple bias awareness courses. They had built a case so thorough and so damning that the county attorney immediately recommended settlement negotiations. Reeves tried to argue he had just been doing his job. His attorney told him to be quiet. He tried to claim the suspicious activity call justified his response. His attorney showed him body camera footage where he ignored all contradictory evidence. He tried to say he didn't know who Alicia was. His attorney pointed out that it didn't matter. What he did was illegal regardless. The reveal was complete. Officer Daniel Reeves had not just made one mistake. He had built an entire career on systematic racial profiling, and the institution that employed him had enabled that behavior for 17 years. Now, all of it was being exposed in federal court. The video footage from Bella's bridal hair studio hit social media within hours. Jennifer Ross posted her recording to Twitter with a detailed thread. By Sunday morning, Alicia's wedding day, the video had 3.2 million views. By Monday, it was national news. The Washington Post ran, FBI director's daughter illegally detained while getting wedding hair done. CNN featured civil rights experts breaking down every constitutional violation. MSNBC brought on former law enforcement officials appalled by Reeves's conduct and the department's failure to address his pattern. Other victims started coming forward. Within 2 weeks, the FBI's Civil Rights Division had collected sworn statements from 17 additional individuals describing remarkably similar experiences. Marcus Thompson had been stopped by Reeves in 2019 while jogging in his own neighborhood. Reeves demanded ID and questioned why Thompson was running through this area. Thompson was a George Mason University professor who lived 3 blocks away. Keisha Williams was questioned in 2021 while sitting in her car outside her own home. Reeves approached with his hand on his weapon, demanding to know what she was doing there. She was a pediatric nurse who had just finished a night shift. James Rodriguez, a decorated Marine veteran, was detained in 2020 during a random vehicle stop that lasted 45 minutes despite no violation and no contraband. The pattern was identical. Reeves targeting people of color in white neighborhoods, demanding explanations for their presence, becoming aggressive when questioned, and filing reports portraying victims as uncooperative. Type pattern if you're seeing the bigger picture. The Fairfax County Board of Supervisors called an emergency meeting. The county faced potential liability from multiple lawsuits. Local advocacy groups demanded accountability. National civil rights organizations watched closely. Media coverage was relentless. Police Chief Tucker announced a complete review of complaint handling procedures. 3 supervisors who had overseen Reeves and failed to act were placed on administrative leave. The training division was ordered to implement immediate bias awareness and constitutional policing reforms. The federal investigation uncovered systemic problems beyond Reeves. The department had a culture of minimizing complaints, especially racial discrimination complaints. Supervisors were trained to protect officers rather than communities. The disciplinary system avoided consequences. The Justice Department issued a scathing report and required a consent decree, federal oversight until specific reforms were implemented and sustained. For the community, this meant long overdue changes. An independent civilian review board was established. Body camera footage became subject to public records requests. Officers required annual constitutional rights and bias training. The department had to track stop data by race and publish results publicly. For victims who suffered years without recourse, this meant validation. Their experiences were finally recognized, their complaints finally taken seriously. The system that failed them was being held accountable. For Alicia Hammond, on Sunday, June 4, 2023, she married David Chen at the National Cathedral. Her hair was perfect. Her father walked her down the aisle with pride and visible anger. She celebrated knowing the next phase of her fight was beginning. The wedding photos showed a radiant bride. The news coverage showed a woman refusing to let injustice go unanswered. The legal filings showed an attorney about to make history. The The lawsuit Alicia Hammond filed on June 12, 2023, was unlike anything Fairfax County had seen. Her ACLU legal team, joined by two premier civil rights law firms, built a case extending far beyond a single Salon incident. The complaint named Officer Daniel Reeves individually for violating her 4th and 14th Amendment rights. It named the Fairfax County Police Department for maintaining a pattern and practice of racial discrimination. It named 3 supervisors for deliberate indifference to constitutional violations. It named the county government for failing to train, supervise, and discipline officers. The damages sought were specific and devastating. $15 million in compensatory damages for constitutional violations, emotional distress, and wedding disruption. An additional $25 million in punitive damages for willful and reckless conduct. And most importantly, injunctive relief requiring comprehensive policy reforms, independent oversight, and ongoing monitoring. Within 6 weeks, 4 more federal lawsuits were filed by other Reeves victims. Marcus Thompson sued for $4.3 million. Keisha Williams for $3.7 million. James Rodriguez for $5.1 million. Each case backed by video evidence, witnesses, and documentation of the department's failure to address complaints. The county attorney understood immediately that fighting at trial would be financial suicide. The evidence was overwhelming. The optics were terrible. The federal consent decree meant admitting systemic problems. Juries in civil rights cases historically favor victims of police misconduct, especially when the pattern is this clear. Settlement negotiations began in August 2023 and continued through fall. The county's position weakened with each revelation from the federal investigation. Discovery uncovered internal emails where supervisors discussed Reeves's aggressive tactics, but decided not to intervene because he was productive in making arrests. That admission destroyed any defense. On December 18, 2023, Fairfax County agreed to settle for $31.9 million, one of the largest civil rights settlements in Virginia history. The settlement included monetary damages and binding policy reforms that would reshape the department for decades. It required implementing a comprehensive early warning system to identify officers with complaint patterns, annual bias training for all officers with mandatory testing, an independent civilian review board with actual disciplinary authority, not just advisory power, public reporting of all stop data broken down by race with regular independent audits, and a personal payment to Alicia of $19.7 million, with the remainder funding community-based police accountability programs. If you think $31.9 million sends the right message, type justice in the comments. The legal consequences extended beyond civil settlement. The U.S. Attorney's Office was conducting parallel criminal investigation into whether Reeves's conduct constituted federal civil rights violations under Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. On February 7, 2024, a federal grand jury indicted Daniel Reeves on 4 counts of violating civil rights. Each count carried a maximum of 1 year in prison and significant fines. The indictment cited the Salon incident and 3 other documented cases where Reeves detained people without legal justification based on race. Reeves's criminal trial began September 9, 2024 in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia. The government's case was methodical and damning. Prosecutors presented body camera footage showing Reeves ignoring legal standards. They presented 42 complaints over 17 years. They brought victim after victim describing identical experiences of being questioned, detained, and humiliated for being black or brown in spaces where Reeves decided they didn't belong. The defense argued Reeves was responding to citizen complaints and following protocol, but prosecution showed Reeves created his own protocol based on racial assumptions, not legal standards. They showed supervisors had warned him, but he continued unchanged. They showed he lied in reports about uncooperative suspects when body cameras proved otherwise. The jury deliberated 7 hours. On September 23, 2024, they returned guilty verdicts on all 4 counts. At sentencing on November 15, 2024, Judge Patricia Reynolds sentenced Reeves to the maximum, 4 years in federal prison with 1 year for each count running consecutively. She imposed fines totaling $75,000. She prohibited Reeves from ever working in law enforcement again. In her sentencing statement, Judge Reynolds said, "Officer Reeves, you took an oath to protect and serve all members of your community. Instead, you targeted people based on skin color and used your badge as a weapon to humiliate and intimidate. Your conduct was not a mistake. It was a 17-year pattern despite multiple warnings. You undermined public trust in law enforcement. You made it harder for good officers to do their jobs. You perpetuated exactly the systemic racism our justice system is supposed to eliminate. Reeves showed no emotion as he was led away in handcuffs. His attorney announced plans to appeal, but legal experts gave those appeals little chance. The destruction of Daniel Reeves's life was total. His law enforcement career ended the moment he walked into that salon. His freedom ended with a federal conviction. The consequences rippled everywhere. His pension, 17 years of contributions worth approximately $1.2 million, was forfeited under Virginia law when he was convicted of a felony committed under color of law. Officers who violate civil rights lose all pension benefits regardless of service years. His marriage ended 6 months after the incident. Karen Reeves filed for divorce in November 2023, citing public humiliation and horror at discovering the officer her husband had been. She stated she could no longer remain married to someone who had systematically targeted and harmed innocent people based on race. His finances collapsed under legal fees and civil judgments. Though the county was the primary defendant, Reeves was personally liable for punitive damages. He declared bankruptcy in March 2024, listing debts over $800,000 against assets under $100,000. His reputation was destroyed beyond recovery. Every major outlet covered his trial. His photo was attached to dozens of articles about police misconduct. A Google search returned pages of coverage detailing his crimes. Any background check would show why hiring him was impossible. His family relationships fractured. His adult children stopped speaking after watching body camera footage. His brother, a Maryland police officer, publicly condemned his actions and supported the conviction. The 3 supervisors who failed to address his complaint pattern were all demoted and reassigned to administrative duties. Their leadership careers were over. 2 resigned within months rather than accept the humiliation. Police Chief Raymond Tucker announced retirement in January 2024, 6 months early. Political pressure made his position untenable. The Board of Supervisors made clear new leadership was needed to rebuild trust. The Fairfax County Police Department faced mandatory reforms costing tens of millions. The consent decree required independent monitors, new technology systems, comprehensive retraining, and civilian oversight. The county budget absorbed these costs plus settlements to victims. 7 other officers who worked with Reeves and failed to report his misconduct faced discipline ranging from suspensions to terminations. The message was clear. Being a bystander to civil rights violations was no longer acceptable. The broader Virginia law enforcement community felt the impact. Other departments reviewed complaint handling procedures. Training programs were updated statewide. The Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police issued new guidelines on addressing discriminatory enforcement patterns. For Patricia Waldron, whose 911 call triggered the incident, consequences were social and legal. News coverage identified her as making the initial complaint about Alicia. Her name became synonymous with racist behavior. She was asked to leave her country club. Friends publicly distanced themselves. She sold her home and moved out of state to escape recognition and condemnation. Maria Chen experienced positive consequences. Bella's bridal hair studio became nationally known as where an innocent bride stood up to illegal harassment. Business increased dramatically. Maria used increased revenue to launch a scholarship fund for young women of color pursuing cosmetology careers. What happened at Bella's bridal hair studio represents something much bigger than one officer's misconduct. It represents a systemic failure that repeats itself across America every day. Alicia Hammond had every advantage that should have protected her. She was an attorney who knew her rights. She was the FBI director's daughter. She was in an upscale salon in an affluent area. She had resources, connections, and knowledge most people never access, and still she was targeted. Still, an officer felt entitled to demand she leave a business where she was a paying customer. Still, he ignored her credentials, her rights, and clear evidence she had done nothing wrong. If it can happen to someone with Alicia's position and resources, imagine how often it happens to people without those protections. Imagine how many times people are removed from businesses, detained on streets, humiliated in public, and harmed by officers like Reeves, and never get justice because they don't have an FBI director for a father or a law degree to fight back. The 42 complaints against Reeves over 17 years tell us he was not a rare bad apple. He was a symptom of a system that failed to hold officers accountable, that minimized complaints from communities of color, that protected officers at the expense of people they were supposed to serve. The $31.9 million settlement is significant not for the dollar amount but for what it represents. A refusal to accept that this behavior is just part of policing. It's a statement that constitutional rights matter. It's a message that targeting people based on race has real consequences. But money alone does not fix systemic racism in law enforcement. The real victory was the consent decree, the policy changes, the independent oversight, the mandatory training, the data tracking. Those reforms have potential to prevent future victims, to catch misconduct patterns before they span 17 years, to create accountability before people are harmed. For everyone watching this story, the lesson is clear. Document everything, know your rights, speak up when you witness injustice, and support people who are targeted. Jennifer Ross pulling out her phone to record may have felt small, but that footage was crucial evidence. Maria Chen standing up for her client and demanding the officer leave was courage that mattered. And for Alicia Hammond, who had her wedding day preparation interrupted by the discrimination she had spent her career fighting, the lesson was personal. The fight for civil rights is never over. The battle for accountability is constant, and sometimes the cases you never expected to handle become the most important ones you'll ever fight. She went to that salon to get her hair done for her wedding. She left with evidence that would change an entire police department and deliver justice to victims who had waited years to be heard. That's what real accountability looks like. That's what happens when someone with power refuses to stay silent. That's what karma looks like when it's backed by law, evidence, and determination to make sure it never happens again. Thank you for watching this story. If you believe in accountability and justice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this video with people who need to see what real consequences look like. Drop a comment telling us your thoughts on the verdict and the settlement. And remember, every time you witness injustice, you have a choice. You can look away, or you can be like Jennifer Ross and Maria Chen, the people who stood up, spoke out, and made sure the truth was recorded. The fight for justice continues. We'll see you in the next one.